Good morning and welcome to the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners meeting Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. Please silence all your cell phones and your electronic devices as we begin the meeting. The Board of County Commissioners meeting for August 25th, 2020 is being held virtually utilizing communications media technology made permissible pursuant to the Governor's executive order. This meeting may be viewed on SGTV, YouTube, and by registering to participate in the Zoom webinar. Residents can provide public comment by registering to speak on the Seminole County website and Board of County Commissioners webpage. There you will find a link to register for the webinar entitled Meeting/Webinar, Registration in Helpful Tense. If you're unable to join via computer or online, interested parties should call the following number, 407-665-0808 for additional information on how to participate via telephone. We will take public comment on each item as it appears on the agenda. In order to be recognized to speak, if you're using a computer or iPad, you'll need to raise your hand. If you're calling on a telephone, you will need to press *9. Today, we're going to have our invocation with Pastor Andy Searles for our church together in Castleberry, and then we'll have Commissioner Lockhart do the Pledge of Allegiance for us today. Welcome, Pastor. Clint, do we have the pastor with us?
Yes, we do. Sorry about that. I was muted. Friends, let's pray together as we start our time. Father, I thank you for the leadership of these men and women over this difficult time. I thank you for how you have given them wisdom and courage and strength. And I pray that today, as they meet and as they lead, that you would continue to give them those things. Lord, where there are challenges, would you bring opportunity? Where there is a need for justice, would you provide it? Where there is hurt, would you heal it? Where there is turbulence, would you bring peace? And in these times where many are struggling and suffering, may the words and wisdom of these leaders bring great comfort. Lord, give them strength, give them compassion, and give them wisdom, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Searles from our church together in Castleberry. Next, we'll have Commissioner Lockhart lead us in the pledge.
Please rise. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Lockhart, and thank you, Pastor Searles. Next up, we're going to have an update with our Emergency Management Director, Mr. Alan Harris, who has been diligently running the EOC now for the last 163 days. So, Mr. Harris, welcome and thank you again.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Great. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager, County Attorney Alan Harris, Chief Administrator for the Office of Emergency Management. Numbers continue to improve here in Seminole County. I thought I'd go a little bit over just some statistics based on some information out in the community. So as you all know, the Florida statute requires each county to have an emergency management agency and gives the authority to the county to establish local states of emergency, requiring every 7 days that we update this order. Florida statute also requires an individual be identified as the Director of Emergency Management who may sign executive orders during times of emergency. In Seminole County has Code 72, the position of Chief Administrator for the Office of Emergency Management. The position I currently hold is the county's emergency manager or director of emergency management, and is given that title in that to meet the Florida Statute 252. I've served in Seminole County since 1999, first in the Fire Service Seminole County Fire Department, and then starting on August the 13th, 2004, the day Hurricane Charlie hit, in emergency management. It's been an unbelievable honor to prepare, respond, recover, and mitigate from all emergencies in Seminole County since that time. Part of this responsibility includes my responsibility to sign executive orders and enter agreements and procurement items to support public safety of the community during these emergencies. And on June 29th, I signed an order requiring social distancing and the use of facial masks and coverings. The order has received, obviously, accolades from parts of the community, as well as deep frustration and anger from other parts of the community, to the point of threats and personal attacks. But while I don't mind taking on these personal attacks as part of my job, I am not going to, though, thank myself for something where thanks is deserved by someone else. It's just not who I am. And so, as I mentioned, the numbers are improving. So the people that I need to thank, and the people we publicly should be thanking, are Donna Walsh, the Health Department Director, Tim Cook with Advent Health Altamont, Dr. Anita with South Seminole Hospital, Tanya Lyles with the Hospital Corporation of America, Dr. Benoit from the Central Florida Regional Hospital, and Trey Abishire with Oviedo Medical Center, and especially Dr. Todd Husty, our County Medical Director. All of these medical professionals advise the county, and specifically me, to support facial masks and coverings. And based on the subject matter experts' information and advice, the order was signed on June 29 after consultation with all municipalities in the county, as well as the Executive Advisory Group. Their advice is saving lives, as you'll see just in a couple minutes, and keeping people healthy. As I mentioned, Seminole County numbers are improving. New cases have gone down. We were seeing 150 to 200 cases per day, new cases per day. Now we're down to 30 to 60 new cases per day. The two blue lines that you see on the screen is when the executive order was issued, and then 14 days after. That is, of course, the incubation period of COVID-19. It takes 14 days for us to see effect of any type of order, and conversely, the effects of not following safety recommendations, as you can see after the Memorial Day weekend and the spike that we had immediately after that. The current positive rate is improving, 10 to 12% during the height of the spike. Then 14 days after the order, we now have 5 to 6%. So it continues to drop after the order was issued. So demand for testing has also gone down. We were having testing at 6 to 7 days per week, and seeing about 150 to 200 per site at multiple sites throughout the county. We've seen a decrease in that demand, and that's because less people are sick, which means that less people are coming in contact with those that are sick, and therefore the testing has gone down. A really incredible number is the hospitalizations. Hospitalizations have dropped from 175 to 200 COVID patients in the hospital to now 60 to 80 on any given day. At the height, 2 hospitals had to cancel all elective surgeries, Oviedo Medical Center Hospital, as well as the Central Florida Regional Hospital, and the 3rd hospital canceled all elective surgeries, which required an overnight stay, Advent Health Altamont. Now, all hospitals are back to normal. All hospitals are able to do elective surgeries, even requiring multiple nights stay. And we encourage people now, more than ever, to get the medical care that they need. Hospitals are better equipped than ever before to help people. They have safety protocols, they have safety procedures to protect everyone. It is a safe place to go, and we encourage people to go there. Current positive cases have also gone down. Our current positive case at the height was 3,600 individuals. Today, 787 people currently active with COVID here in the community. Some have said the numbers are improving, so you can remove the mask ordinance now. Well, each week, the chief medical officers for all 4 hospitals, our medical director, and the Florida Department of Health Director Donna Walsh, discuss current actions. The executive advisory group also meets to discuss recommendations. The improved numbers, while not solely specifically on masks, certainly it does. There is a correlation. You can see the correlation in the graphs. Unfortunately, the only bad number that I have to report to you today is the number of fatalities, which continues to increase. But this is due to the lag time of persons getting sick, fighting the virus for weeks, and then unfortunately losing the battle. It takes time for this process to happen, So we're seeing the results of the spike today in fatalities. Our current fatality count has climbed to 163. There's unfortunately a lot of fake news and misinformation, as you know, out in the community. Some is intentional, some is just that people don't understand. So here are some additional pieces of information. In all of 2019, 29 persons died due to influenza and pneumonia. All for the whole year, 2019, 29 individuals. This is according to the Florida Department of Health vital statistics. COVID is not the flu. Another piece of misinformation is that all persons who have COVID are listed as a COVID death. This is just incorrect and it's fake news. Hundreds of COVID positive individuals have died, while only 163 are verified COVID deaths. We have an incredible medical examiner's office, and we have an incredible epidemiology team at the Florida Department of Health that investigates and verifies each fatality. Just because someone has COVID, it is not listed as a COVID fatality. It is critical that persons get information from trusted sources, not emails or social media comments. None of us trust all emails. We don't give our bank accounts out to the Nigerian prince with millions of dollars for us, so why would we trust fake emails during a worldwide pandemic? The EOC continues to battle these pieces of information by providing reliable communication through our social media. Our public information team continues to put information out on all social media platforms, public service announcements, Seminole government television, and information through our Prepare Seminole, and our daily dashboard, which is currently on your screen right now, which provides current statistics from the county. And I want to thank you all for helping us to develop this dashboard. It was because of your recommendation that we provide this to the community, and we've had a lot of accolades based on this particular dashboard. We continue to provide this good information to our public. Along with that, of course, we are continuing to provide information and PPE and other commodities to those in our community. To date, we have delivered over 1.5 million items of personal protective equipment to ALS and nursing homes alone. 2,895 food packages to individuals that are isolated and quarantined in their home, and 1,441 PPE kits so other members of the family can stay safe while the additional member of the family has COVID-19 inside of their household. Currently, we have 93 residents in ALS and nursing homes that are positive. This is a concern for us, so we continue to provide additional enhanced testing every 2 weeks to ALS and nursing homes, specifically the staff and the resident, so that we can make sure that the residents that are positive are isolated and quarantined. In addition to that, we have teams going in through the Florida Department of Health, the local regional incident management team, which is made up of health professionals going into our ALS and nursing homes to do infectious disease control assessments, as well as we have daily or weekly calls with all the ALF and nursing home administrators and those that are more problematic, meaning that there's more residents in those facilities than the other facilities. We have special calls with those individuals to see what types of services they need, what types of resources they need, so that we can make sure that we're providing good communication to them and good equipment so that they do not have additional cases in those facilities. We continue to do our business spotlight, which has been very, very popular with our business community, as well as the CARES Act support through our Citizens Information Line, and of course the individual assistance being launched tomorrow. This concludes my report. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, as usual, for your vigilance in this matter. Any questions or inquiries from the board? We'll see none. Oh, Commissioner Lockhart.
All right. When we do that switch, things move around and it takes me a while to find my unmute button again.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah,
I got confused myself. Yes, sorry.
That's all right. Alan, I just want to say thank you again. I know the chairman always thanks you on behalf of the board, but I know every single one of us has peppered you with questions and requests over the course of the last 160, however many days it's been. And you've just done an incredible job of juggling it all. And I think the fact that you have received a a lot of accolades, certainly, but also you have your detractors, and it's unfortunate that it's become personal. And I just want to say publicly that I think we need to do everything we can as a board to encourage our community members to share their opinions respectfully and without threats, because it's completely unacceptable in our community to treat one another that way. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Great, I agree. Any other inquiries or statements from the board? Seeing none, Mr. Harris, again, thank you very much and be well. All right, next up, we have our awards and presentations. We have Commissioner Delory will be reading the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. We have Sharon Lien, the president of the Seminole County League of Women Voters, on the line to accept this proclamation. Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the following proclamation. The proclamation of Seminole County Board of County Commissioners in honor of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution and in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the League of Women Voters in the United States. Whereas bold and courageous and powerful women who fought for the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution on August 18, 1920, deserve special recognition on the 100th anniversary of its ratification in 2020. And whereas the facts that today women are local activists in state and national government and are running for office is in unprecedented numbers, remind us that we all follow in the footsteps of these American suffragettes. And whereas the women's rights to votes has enhanced the political discourse in Seminole County and the state of Florida and the United States of America. And whereas the League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 as a mighty political experiment whose goal was to help 20 million women who won the right to votes understand and carry out their new responsibilities as voters. Whereas the success of this effort and a tireless effort over the last 100 years to strengthen and uphold its mission to empower voters and to defend democracy, the League has become a trusted, nonpartisan, grassroots organization. And whereas the League has supported legislation and fought in the courts to protect and strengthen voting rights and access and for free and fair elections, and whereas the League has consistently provided nonpartisan election information, including sponsorship of candidate forum and information of state and local ballot issues, as well as the commitment to register, educate, and mobilize voters. Whereas the League believes that active, informed, and engaged citizens, respectively of gender, ethnicity, and political affiliation, are the hallmark for democracy. And whereas the League of Seminole County Women Voters has enhanced the civil rights of this community since 1966. Now therefore be proclaimed that Seminole County Board of County Commissioners do hereby honor the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment and congratulate the League of Women Voters of the United States on the 100th anniversary and commend the League for its significant contribution and empower the voters in making a democracy work. Adopted this 25th day, August 2020. So moved.
Well, thank you.
Commissioner Constantine, you're muted. Okay.
I seconded it, but I didn't want the clap to go too loud.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying the aye sign. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimous. Welcome, Miss Lynn. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to offer a huge thank you to the commissioners for honoring us with this proclamation. Our Centennial Celebration Committee, which was led by Deborah Carswell, worked very hard in a year where very little went as expected or hoped for. We thought we would be having some great centennial celebrations, and basically any celebration is virtual. So the League turning 100, along with the 19th Amendment, has given us an opportunity to look back upon the women upon whose shoulders we stand. The fact that we thrive as an organization and continue to advocate and educate with the goal of informed voters would really not be possible without the suffragists of 100 years ago. So to keep it brief, here's to the next 100 years, and thank you again so much for the honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. We appreciate it very much. Anyone from the board have any comments for Ms. Lynn? Commissioner Lockhart?
Actually, I don't have a comment for Miss Lynn, but I do want to weigh in on our proclamation process.
Okay. If you'll just hold 1 second and we'll finish up with Ms. Lynn. Ms. Lynn, thank you very much for being here today on behalf of the League of Women Voters to accept this 100th anniversary proclamation. Thank you and be well.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lockhart?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I support the 19th Amendment. It certainly had a huge impact on my life. Without it, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. My concern as we start to parcel out and divide up different amendments of our Constitution is that there are some that will likely not be recognized. And so I would like if instead of going amendment by amendment, if maybe next month we could just recognize Constitution Week and show support for our entire Constitution with all of its associated amendments. I think this board, of course, each one of us, when we took office, swore an oath to uphold, protect, and defend the entire Constitution. And so if we could do that and maybe dispense with the onesie twosies, I would appreciate that personally.
Okay. Any other comment on that note?
Well, I know do you know the date of Constitution Week? Do you know the dates for that? Is it September?
September 17th through the 23rd.
So if we could have it maybe at that second meeting, and I think the Daughters of the American Revolution usually have something, certainly the school does. That's also the week that they have people come in and help teach about the Constitution to the students. So I think that's a great idea. Thanks for bringing it up.
Okay. Any others? Okay, so be it. All right, thank you, Commissioner Lockhart. All right, next we're going to move into our public participation portion. Pursuant to Florida law, the public has a right to be heard on all propositions except when the Board of County Commissioners is acting on ministerial or emergency matters or conducting a meeting exempt from Section 286.011 Florida statutes. Public comment time on propositions shall be 3 minutes for individuals, 6 minutes for group representatives. The right to be heard during quasi-judicial hearings is governed by Florida law. The public will be provided the opportunity to be heard on non-agenda matters at the end of the meeting. Proper decorum shall be observed. We're going to move to the consent agenda. County Manager, are there any changes to the consent agenda? Ms. Guillet, you're muted.
I'm sorry, no, sir. No changes.
Okay. If members of the public would like to make a comment or attending the meeting using a computer, iPad, or other electronic devices, click on the raise hand feature. If you've called in on a telephone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. You'll be called in the order that you've raised your hand. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to comment on the county manager's consent agenda items 2 through 42?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, Clint, hold 1 second. Commissioner Carey, do you have a comment?
Yeah, if you're going to there's an item I'd like to pull for a separate discussion. That's item 41.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to pull on number 25 for separate discussion.
41 and 25. Any others? Okay. All right, Clint, do we have anyone on the line that wishes to speak on consent agenda items 2 through 42?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is Miss Lawrence the first one we have?
Yes, sir.
Miss Lawrence, which item on the consent agenda do you desire to speak to?
Well, I'm not speaking right now.
Okay. Clint, I think Ms. Lawrence is not interested in speaking on these items. Do we have anyone else, Clint?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Looks like we have Mr. Bill Hyde. Mr. Hyde, if you would, for the record, full name and address and which item you desire to speak on.
Good afternoon or good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bill Hyde. I live at 2379 Audley Street in Oviedo. I'd like to address item 25 if I could, sir.
Please proceed.
Okay, I live right off Lake Hayes Road, and I got an email from staff about the layout of this whole thing, the way the sidewalk is to be built, and I think, for one thing, I think they got it all backwards. I think the portion that they show on the south side might be considered better on the other side, and vice versa. The county has a whole strip of land north of Palm that if a sidewalk was built there, wouldn't interfere with anybody's yards. And also, I'd like to point out that I've talked to several neighbors that live right there around my corner, and they didn't know anything about this. And I'm sure that they would be very interested in knowing that the county was going to come along and put a sidewalk in there. So what I'm asking is that hopefully the commission will consider, putting this off until there's some community discussions on this. It just doesn't seem right. Y'all are always, saying you want to have community input, and if an HOA comes in about a speed bump or a sidewalk, y'all are always accommodating. So I'm hoping you'll do the same for us. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Okay, Clint, if you'll cue the next caller in, please. Looks like we have Mr. Robert Hanson. Mr. Hanson, you're in. If you would be so kind to give us your full name and your address, please, for the record.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name is Robert Hanson. I live 1251 Sidcup Road in Maitland.
Okay, sir. What item are you speaking about today? Mr. Hanson?
32751.
I think we're...
I'm trying to speak on the item of the sidewalks. And, I
Wh-
don't
which-
have this-
Which item, sir? Item 25?
I
Now, unfortunately, Mr. Hanson, I don't know if we were on a cell phone connection or a Wi-Fi, but you're not coming through.
It's the one that's in Falmouth Road, Sunderland. I think that might be 41.
Okay.
Actually, 41 is about contractors, so it's not 41.
Right.
I apologize. I'm just trying to say I support the sidewalks. I think it's good for the safety. There's a school close by. But
Okay,
I'm sorry,
sir.
I didn't
Sir, I think we've got you out of order. That I think is on the English Estates.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Is that later in the meeting?
yes, it is. And you can find the agenda
Okay, I'll
online.
stand by. I apologize.
No worries at all. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Okay. Clint, if you do have a copy of the agenda, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you could just try to verify the best we can, try to vet and make sure that we're bringing these folks in on for the items that they are timely speaking about would be helpful. We'd appreciate it. Anyone else standing by to speak about the consent item agendas 2 through 42?
No, sir.
Okay. And we've had a request to pull items 25 by Commissioner Delary and item 41 for Commissioner Carey for further discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the consent agenda item minus 25 and 41.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call roll on the motion and second. Commissioner Delary,
Aye.
Lockhart,
Aye.
Carey,
Aye.
Constantine,
Yes.
Zembauer, yes. Okay, let's go to item 41, which was the first requested by Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for miscellaneous small contracts with a value of less than $100,000. And when I was reviewing the information, we had 7 submittals, and they're recommending that we select 2. And the way this contract's going to work is that every time they have a project under $100,000, they'll send the scope out to the selected firms, and each firm will bid on it, and it will be awarded to the low bidder. What I thought was interesting is that there was a company, BK Ernest LLC in Oviedo, who was actually, they submitted numbers for services in here, and he was actually the low bidder in all the categories, yet he was not included in the recommendation. So my recommendation is going to be that we approve 3 contractors instead of 2, and that they would have the low bidder included, who's also a local contractor, to have an opportunity to bid to get the best value for our citizens. So, Mr. Chairman, if anybody else has any questions on this, I'll make a motion to that effect.
Can we comment on that, please?
Ms. Kieh, go ahead.
I wanted to share with the rest of the board, we sent some information out on this yesterday to you. They're explaining why the low bidder wasn't included in the recommendation, and that was based on past performance. So we have done projects with that contractor, one specific significant project, and we had some issues with it, and it took a significant amount of staff time to manage that project. So that is why that staff did not include the lowest bidding contractor in its recommendations. I just wanted everybody to be aware of that there was a reason that they weren't included, and we did send you an email explaining that yesterday.
The email that I got said that y'all picked the 2 that you felt most represented the
we sent a follow-up. We sent a follow-up after that.
I didn't see that, but so how many projects did he do for the county?
I don't know how many he did, but we had a window retrofit project at the Public Works building, and based on the performance on that project, they were not included in the recommendation.
And I followed up on that question, made that inquiry as Commissioner Carey did as well. And Ms. Kieh, I think, has, for the most part, memorialized what I learned when I checked into why the lowest bidder was not included as part and parcel of that recommendation. And it's my understanding that there were quite a bit of additional staff time and assets utilized to ensure that ultimately that contract finally got completed. And I think there was some interaction and some timeliness issues with that as well. So that's what I know about it.
I saw the overall response to my questions. I had a long list of questions for Nicole when we had our briefing yesterday, but I didn't see that follow-up that there was an issue with the contractor. In those scenarios, I mean, maybe you should disqualify those contractors for past performance rather than leaving them in the mix, because clearly their numbers by far are better than the other 2 contractors that we're awarding to. And if they did 20 projects and you only had a problem with 1, again, I would say that would be something for consideration. So too bad we didn't get all the detail. With that, Mr. Chairman, then I will move approval of item number 41.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second by Commissioner Constantine. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Delary?
Aye.
Lockhart?
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Constantine,
Yes.
Zembauer, yes. Okay, that brings us to Commissioner Delari's request on item 25. Commissioner Delari, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you allowing me to bring this up, pull it. Since this is not a time-sensitive issue because to deal with the sidewalk in an existing community, I think it'd be appropriate for us to actually have a community meeting to actually find out exactly what the residents of this area wants, to make sure that we're doing what needs to be done in this area, and then bring it back to the board to take action. Instead of taking action, have a community meeting, and then bringing it back to the board to make changes. I would like to have the community meeting first so that we can understand exactly what's happening. Because as Mr. Hyde said on the public comments, it's going to be kind of confusing when you have sidewalk going down half the street and then you're going to switch over to the other half. There is some county property. I'd like to have the community meeting first and then bring it to the board to take action to actually set the amount that actually is going to be spent.
Okay. Ms. Guier, can you, or is Mr. Dredge present to add anything to that? Have we not reached out to the public on this matter?
We, so typically as part of these projects, as part of the design phase, we do coordinate with the neighborhood. We can do that ahead of design, just with the understanding that once the engineers get involved, until they get involved, they don't always know where the best place is to put the sidewalk. So we can do some advanced community outreach on not only this project, but all of the sidewalk projects. This is the second one that in a couple of weeks that we've had some concerns with. And we can establish a process where we have an initial outreach to the community with the understanding that once design work starts, things could change. But absolutely, we can pull back on this one, and we can institute a process wherein we have an initial outreach to the community, and then as part of the design process, also a follow-up so that folks understand kind of where, based on the site conditions, the most appropriate place is for the sidewalk.
Okay. Commissioner Carey.
Well, and you may recall, I mean, we started a lot of these sidewalk projects because the close proximity to schools and trying to make those connections. And that was a joint effort that we developed to work with the school to get walkable areas for children in the school. I think community meetings are always important. It seems to me like we've heard a lot lately from in this sidewalk discussion about people saying, well, you're going to put the sidewalk in my yard, or, you know, I have to move my bush or something in order for you to put in the sidewalk. Well, we're typically putting the sidewalk in the county-owned right-of-way, and not, it just, people tend to use it as their yard, and pretty soon they start to believe that it belongs to them. So I think community meetings are always helpful, and certainly if there's already sidewalk on one side of the road or the other, we come across this all the time as we're talking about sidewalk projects. And so I think that having that policy in place before we start spending money to have the community meeting, but understand that the reason that we started a lot of these school sidewalk projects is to provide safe passage for students walking to school.
As well as, you know, some of our physically impaired folks to be able to safely through ADA get through our community, especially in this area. And I concur with Commissioner Carey. We continue to hear folks about disrupting their front yards, disrupting and moving trees and so forth. And although I don't want to see a tree be taken down any more than the next person, you know, for the most part, these are in the right of way. If they weren't in the right of way, then we as a commission would be being asked by staff to fund a taking or a purchase of a portion of somebody's yard. And although I know a lot of people that don't want sidewalks in their front yard, you know, and I may be one of those myself, that at the end of the day, it is more about the community and the safe passage of the children and others to work through the community. So I'm happy to support if you're going to have a community meeting. The only thing I would want to understand in the current climate, how are you proposing to put the meeting together in the world and days of COVID without delaying it or prolonging it for an extended period of time? Are you going to do a Zoom meeting or a masked social distancing meeting out at the site or at a community center, or yet to be determined?
I think that's yet to be determined. We have done some virtual meetings, community meetings already. If it is a small group, we could certainly do something. I think it'll depend on the nature of the project and how big the project is, and what the safest way. We prefer face-to-face if we can do it, but it's just not really conducive under the existing circumstances. If it is a small group, we could try to do a site meeting, but we have done virtual community meetings, and can continue to move these projects forward, irrespective of the existing circumstances.
So yeah, I agree that the problem I see, if you don't do at least some on-site visit, maybe the community can assign 1 or 2 point people to interact. The problem is, if you do it in a Zoom and you don't do it in person, then they're going to have a problem of not really understanding where physically the sidewalk may go. And that's what I think most people want to understand, is where along the roadway or their yard or their neighbor's yard is the sidewalk actually going to be, versus looking at a map or a engineered drawing in a Zoom meeting. So that would be my input on that. Commissioner Lockhart?
I think we have a process opportunity, and I completely understand where Ms. Guillet is saying that it's hard to stand out on site and talk about where the sidewalk would go when the engineers haven't had the opportunity to look at it and review it. But then you've got the cart before the horse issue of spending money on engineering plan designs, drawings for sidewalks that people may not want. So maybe staff could spend some time looking at what might be a good process to gauge public interest, whatever that may look like, if it's in person or online or via postcard or whatever, before we start spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in design, only to find out that the public is going to, come at us with pitchforks glowing.
And I agree. It's really a 2 community meeting process in that sense. And that's fine. We can absolutely do that. I just want folks to understand that the first meeting to gauge interest and to educate them on the project, understanding that once we get into design, if we move forward, things could change just based on the circumstances. As long as the public understands that, but absolutely, we could do as much. I would rather do the community input on the front end than in this scenario. So absolutely, anything we can do to facilitate that, we're happy to try to make it work in whatever way we need to, in the crazy times that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And I think, I just, as an aside, talking about how to meet safely, people are gathering for lots of reasons currently safely, and community meetings that involve county staff certainly should not be excluded from that list of gatherings. I sense that there may be, it's time for us to start meeting with groups of people safely. We can do it.
So on that point about the engineering, I would hope, and we'll go to Commissioner Carey, I would hope that we've done at least our initial homework and understanding before we get into all kinds of money with design costs and engineering costs, that we have a good understanding of the right-of-way, we have a good understanding of any taking that needs to take place, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of that stuff is just, elementary, easily accessible items that staff could gain and have knowledge of before you get out there and really start spending a lot of money. Commissioner Carey?
Well, it's interesting that the item says that construction would be complete by November of 2020, which is just a couple of months away. So we've obviously already spent a lot of money on this particular project during doing the design and all of that, and this is for the construction. So I think having some protocol in place is important. But I also think that when you have that first community meeting on site, it might be worthwhile to have somebody, the surveyors, go out there and drop a few survey stakes in, rope off to show people where the actual right of way is. So that and you may not say, well, it's going to be right here, but it's going to be in this right of way, and they can get a visual, because visuals are important, especially in community meetings. And we have that information. And so, and we have it before we even start a project, because if we don't have the right of way, they know that before they start the project as well, if we have missing right of way. But clearly they've already spent some time out there in the field on this project. And I think it would be easy for staff to go out and put up a visual and then have a community meeting and bring it back to us at that point in time. So I do think an overall protocol, I mean, there's nothing pressing about it. And obviously, I mean, COVID is going to pass and our lives are going to go back to some sort of normal. It may not be in large 250, 300 people gatherings, but I do agree with Commissioner Lockhart. We can easily gather safely for community meetings where people are doing it for funerals and weddings and other important, events. So,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Constantine?
I think that we've all agreed that we should have a process before we start doing the engineering and everything, that we go out there and we talk to the citizens. It just makes sense. I think we're all saying the same thing. So if if Commissioner Delory is going to make a motion on this, I'll second it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe a motion needs to be made. I mean, if no action is taken, then we can bring it back at any appropriate time.
You want to continue this item, Commissioner Delory? To a date uncertain?
Yes.
I'll just continue it, make a motion just to continue it until staff finds it's ready to bring it back.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a call. Commissioner Delory?
Aye.
Lockhart?
Aye.
Carey?
yes.
Constantine?
Yes.
Zembauer, yes. Okay, so we're worked our way through those two. All right, next item up is the
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, while we have John Dredge there.
Mr. Dredge.
I just, your staff forwarded to me, and I don't know if they forwarded to the entire board, the sidewalk projects in the county that you already have designed or are in design. There was a list of them that were provided, and I think that might be helpful to recirculate so that everyone can kind of understand what's already been designed for these types of sidewalk projects and how much has already been spent, so we can kind of gauge the number of things like this that might be coming before us. So every time we don't go, hey, didn't we talk about this? We kind of have a heads up. I don't want to hit you over the head every time.
No, that's all right. We send that information. We send it to you. We send it to all the commissioners.
Okay, great.
But if you need any more information, we'll be glad to do it.
Okay, thank you.
And we send it to everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Lockhart. Thank you, John. All right, next we'll move to the Constitutional Officers Consent Agenda. Item 43 is a clerk's office consent agenda. Is there anyone in the public, Clint, that desires to talk about item 43?
No, sir.
Okay, I will look to board action.
Move to approve item number 43 is presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call roll. Commissioner Delory?
Aye.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Aye.
Commissioner Carey?
Yes.
Commissioner Constantine?
Yes.
Commissioner Zembauer, yes. All right, item 44 is a sheriff's office consent item. Do we have anybody from the public? I'm sorry, Commissioner Carey, did you have something?
I was making a motion to move the item.
Okay. I got cut off there. I didn't hear it. All right, we have a motion.
I'll second Commissioner Carey's motion.
Y'all are quick on the draw this morning.
I have to move it along.
Clint, do we have anybody that desires to speak on item 44?
No, sir.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll call roll. Commissioner Laurie,
Aye.
Commissioner Lockhart,
Aye.
Commissioner Carey,
Yes.
Commissioner Constantine,
Yes.
and Bauer, yes. Very good. Regular agenda item is item number 45. It's Code Enforcement Board Lien. Pat Hughes will be presenting. Good morning, Ms. Hughes. You have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Pat Hughes, Planning and Development. Item 45 is a request from Kevin Marilot, the owner, for a further waiver reduction under the lien amnesty program of a code enforcement lien on a vacant property located at West 18th Street in Sanford. The lien totals $25,100. On July 29, 2008, the code enforcement officer first observed the following violation: uncultivated vegetation in excess of 24 inches within 75 feet of a structure, in violation of Seminole County Code, Chapter 95, Section 95.4, as defined in 95.3H. On February 26, 2009, the Code Enforcement Board issued an order giving the respondent a compliance date of March 12, 2009, or a fine of $100 per day would start to accrue. On March 23, 2009, the Code Enforcement Officer filed an affidavit of noncompliance after reinspection on March 13, 2009. On April 26, 2009, the Code Enforcement Board issued an order finding noncompliance, imposing fine and lien, with the fine continuing to accrue until compliance is obtained. An affidavit of compliance was filed by the Code Enforcement Officer after reinspection on November 17, 2009. The current lien totals $25,100. On July 30th, 2015, the property was sold at the Seminole County tax sale to Kevin Marilot, as it is adjacent to his property, for $1,200. The respondent meets the requirements for the lien amnesty program, and due to the proven financial hardship, staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners reduce the Code Enforcement Board lien totaling $25,100 for case 0925 CEB on the property located at West 18th Street in Sanford, owned by Kevin Marilot, to the administrative cost under the lien amnesty program of $250. Require this reduced amount to be paid within 30 days or the lien will revert to the original amount of $25,100, and authorize the chairman to execute the release of lien upon payment in full. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Clint, do we have the applicant on the line, Mr. Marilot?
I do not see him.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Marilot wasn't sure if he'd be able to get in, so he did email me a statement this morning. If the board would like, I can read that.
Please.
Hello, folks. I think it's very important that you look at the dates on my bank statements. If you do, you'll notice that every month, by about the middle of the month, when the bank statement comes out, I'm always down to about $80 to $100. Then I have to figure out a way to make that last until I get my next $783 on the 1st. That's why I always pay my hard bills within a day or two of getting that $783 each month. The bottom line is that I don't have any money to pay unexpected bills or expenses. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. Mr. Marilot was not the owner at the time this all began to unfold?
Correct, he was not.
So he purchased the property that was in violation through the tax sale?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that. Commissioner Carey, you had your hand?
Yeah, so he paid $1,200 for the property.
Correct.
He was able to pay the $1,200, and in your conversations with him, you've confirmed he can pay the $250 administrative costs to clear this up?
He was asking that it be reduced to zero because he feels he cannot pay the administrative costs under the lien amnesty program.
Okay, well.
All right.
Pat, he's already paid $100 of that, correct?
Correct.
As part of the application, so it would be $150 remaining, correct?
Correct.
All right. I thought, Commissioner Lockhart, did I see your hand raised?
Well, I was contemplating raising it, so you were probably reading my mind. I guess, was Mr. Marilot the one that cleaned up the property? It was in a state of disrepair and a code violation, and he came in and cleaned it up? And
No,
no, he did not.
no, it was in compliance in 2009, and Mr. Marilot bought it in 2015.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Carey?
Well, so this is in my district, but I'd also want to just talk a little bit about the lien amnesty program. And so maybe what we should consider for people that think this will be a burden to pay the small administrative cost of $250, some type of payment program, because I mean, it's a great bargain. He's going from a lien of $25,000 plus to administrative cost of $250, which we all know has not covered the administrative cost on these things. And so, Mr. Chairman, if there's no more discussion, I'm willing to make a motion that would allow some time for him to make payments if he so needs to.
And Commissioner Carey, do you have a time frame in mind?
Yeah, the recommendation is to give for it to be paid within 30 days, and I would say for it to be paid within 90 days. He's already paid $100, that leaves $150 that he would owe, and he could pay it over 90 days to clear this.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? So, Ms. Hughes, do you clear on the motion, and you understand what the desire of the motioner and the second is, and you believe you can facilitate that program?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. No further discussion. We'll call the vote. Commissioner Delary.
Aye.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Aye.
Commissioner Carey.
Yes.
Commissioner Constantine.
Yes.
Commissioner Zembauer, yes. Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item number 46. And this is going to be presented by Mr. Terry McHugh, our Environmental Services Director. Terry, there he is. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. For your consideration is item number 46, which you can pull up the slide, please. Which is a resolution amending section 2040 of Seminole County's Administrative Code to increase solid waste disposal fees by 3%. This item reflects direction given by the board from Environmental Services during our revenue sufficiency reviews for both the water and sewer and solid waste funds that was given on May 19th of this year. Summarizing the results of that study for the solid waste fund, the solid waste has a significant cash flow imbalance, meaning expenses outweigh revenues. The main two drivers of this imbalance are recycling and interest income. From recycling, in 2011, when these fees were last increased, recycling was a revenue for the county. Over the last few years, recycling is now an expense, which means that the fees we pay to process recycling are more than the revenues we receive. And this trend is only expected to continue in the years to come. Additionally, as you know, the economic environment and the low interest rates that are available, our interest income takes a significant hit on our reserves. So with both of these driving factors, it was recommended to the board that we increase the solid waste fees by 3%. And we're also committed to going before the board with revenue sufficiency studies for each of the next 2 years for this fund to further assess where we're at relative to our peers. One thing I'd like to share, staff found a newspaper article from this morning. The article was back in February, but Brevard County, for its unincorporated citizens, increased its solid waste fees by 39% this year. Well, what this goes to show you is that municipalities throughout this area face the same drivers that we do. And our approach is to take an incremental approach because our reserves are healthy in the solid waste fund for the moment, and assess data as it comes to make sure you have the best information available to make decisions for our citizens. With that, the recommendation is to consider approving and authorizing to execute the resolution amending section 20.40 of the Seminole County Administrative Code to increase solid waste disposal fees by 3% and to provide an effective date of 90 days after date of execution. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. We'll wait till staff gets our screen back to us and we play musical squares. Commissioner Lockhart goes from the middle to the top left, and Commissioner Carey goes from the middle all the way to the right. Commissioner Lockhart.
Terry, thank you so much. This is a conversation that I know is tedious because we have become as a society ingrained in the idea that recycling is the best thing that we could possibly do for our environment. And at the time that this all started, it was not only good for the environment, it was also good economics. And there's probably debate among some whether or not all recycling is necessarily good for the environment, but that gets into a whole interesting debate. So I'll let that sit over here and marinate for a minute. But I do think that there is value in having a detailed discussion about the real cost of the different recyclables that we are offering service for in our community, and whether or not we need to really engage the citizens in which types of recycling are most important, because maybe it's not just an increase in costs that we need to pass along to our citizens, but maybe there is a reduction of some type of service that could go along with it. But I know you have all the data and the details of which types of plastic and which types of paper and aluminum. I know aluminum actually does benefit us. So I've started saving aluminum cans, and at least we're recycling those. But I think we need to, I would like at least to have a clearer, better understanding of the entire recycling program, its benefits and its negatives.
Okay. We can certainly do that as part of our annual assessment next year, to have a deeper dive in the commodity fees for the different recycling components, what fraction that makes of our stream, and what expenses that we incur, and the value of those too, so we can better understand. But you're also right, that also hand in hand with that was education of our customers as well.
Right. And I don't want to speak for Mr. McHugh, but I can tell you, because my business, we tend to recycle a lot of things that come off an automobile, and it's cyclical in nature. And whereas you may be able to sell for X amount of pennies or dollars per 100 pounds of certain recyclables for 6 months, then all of a sudden you've got no buyers for it, and you're now having to pay someone to haul those materials off. It was very interesting to learn when I toured the landfill that glass is one of those, that apparently China and others are no longer buying the old glass because they've got a cheaper method to, I guess, make it. But I was very impressed with our staff, who then, looking for alternative uses, was able to get approval to crush the glass to a certain consistency that then is now acceptable layover material in the landfill. So those are great things, but it is very cyclical, and it's hard to sometimes track when you're getting paid for material, then all of a sudden you can't find anybody to buy it. Now you got to pay to have it hauled off. Commissioner Constantine, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that what's in front of us right now is something that has been consistent over a course of time, that we were going to continue to increase 3%. Is that not correct, Terry?
That's what my expectation in the long-term plan is, to continue small increases until we correct the cash imbalance. Yes.
And this is something that all the cities as well as the county continue to do. In fact, I think we're on the very low end in this county of the increase of the 3% in the water and sewer compared to some other cities and county, and certainly other counties around the area. So this is already consistent with our code that we approved, and therefore I'll move approval of item 46.
A motion?
Yes.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Clint, do we have anybody from the public that wishes to weigh in on this matter?
No, sir.
Okay.
Oh, somebody, hold on. Yes, we do. Somebody just raised their hand.
Okay. Let's bring them in, please. It looks like we have Diana Denin
I think
in.
she's a legacy 240 person, maybe.
Yes.
I am, but
Good morning and welcome. If you
Good
could state
morning.
your name and address for the record. And
Diana Dannon, 938 East Palm Valley Drive.
yes, and you're here to speak about the item number 46. Please proceed.
I just wanted to say that in an effort, I noticed when Pro Waste picked up our recycles, that they were mixing it in with regular garbage. And so I had a meeting with the business owner, and he advised me that he has a contract, for example, with Palm Valley, and it's over an extended period of time. And when he goes to bring his recycle to the Seminole Recycle Center, that now they've increased their rates. So he has a contract to collect X dollars from Palm Valley, but the cost for him to dump each ton of the recycle waste has increased over the years. So he's losing money on every contract. I think we need to look at this also from the small business owner's perspective. And perhaps, I don't know if this is within the government control, but make some kind of a concession or rule that allows these small business owners to revisit contracts that they have with these large commercial properties and increase what they're collecting to accommodate our recycle programs. They're really important programs. But
Sure.
the small business owner can't be expected to bear the cost increases by themselves. I think that cost increase has to be shared among the commercial properties like Palm Valley, and ultimately they're going to pass it on to me. But if we want to preserve our environment for future generations, then we need to look at this from the trickle down process. I wasn't going to speak on this. You're going to see me again later, but
Okay.
I had to put my 2 cents in, and I'm so
Sure.
sorry.
No worries. Thank you very much for being here.
Okay, thank you.
We'll
Now
talk
what
to
do
you
I
later
do?
today.
Now
Thank
what do
you.
I do? I hit leave? No.
Okay. All right. We have a motion, a second. Clint, nobody else on the line on this matter?
No, sir.
All right. Any further dialogue with the commission? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. Commissioner Delary?
Aye.
Lockhart?
Aye.
Carey?
Aye.
Constantine?
Yes.
Zembauer, yes. Okay. That brings us to item 47, the Sunrail transition update. And we have County Attorney, Mr. Brian Applegate, that's going to present this initially.
Yes, I'm just going to introduce Deputy County Attorney Paul Chipbach. As you know, based on our briefings, Paul and I have been meeting extensively over the last couple of months. We put an outline together that we shared with all of you. Also want to compliment Commissioner Delary. His steadfast approach to this has led us to this point. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Applegate. Welcome, Mr. Chipbach. Ready when you are, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a Sunrail update for you. We had given you the briefing sheet. In a nutshell, the Rail Commission on May 28th executed a letter back to FDOT stating that with the Phase 2 North, oops, we had a slight spill here, sorry. With Phase 2 North, we requested, the Rail Commission requested that that be put on hold for the foreseeable future until the consultant report comes in, and that the 34 million in federal flex funds be held in abeyance until the consultant report comes back to find out and make recommendations as to the best use of that money, whether it be for the construction of Phase 2 North or whether it be allocated to other capital improvements within the Sunrail project. On July 24th, we received a letter from FDOT where FDOT said they are not going to roll over the $34 million in flex funds and requested that by October 29th, the next Commuter Rail Commission meeting, board meeting, that either the local governments give a list of capital improvement projects where they want the $34 million spent, or if they do not get that, or there's no agreement, then they were going to spend the $34 million in addition to $20 million additional dollars from FDOT and $20 million from Volusia County and move forward with the construction of Phase 2 North. The impact of your prior actions, which was to support the original letter of May 28th, which was to hold the $34 million in abeyance and wait until the consultant's report comes in effect, will force DOT's hand and have them move forward with the construction of Phase 2 North in this fiscal year. I just wanted to make you aware that that is the net effect of your current position and current vote on this matter. And for the recommendation of staff, at this point, we would say, hold your present position, keep the $34 million in abeyance and wait for the consultant's report. However, your staff will continue to work with the work group, which is the technical staffs from the other local government partners in Sunrail, to look at the alternative uses potentially for the $34 million and continue discussions with FDOT and get better facts and figures as to the true costs of the various capital improvement projects. And then we would bring this matter back to you closer to the October date, which would be, you have board meetings on the October 13th or October 27th, and then the next Rail Commission meeting is October 29th. So we can make you can make the best decision at that time. What is the best use of the $34 million, and is it worth the risk and effort to amend the various Sunrail agreements prior to the consultant's report? So I'm here to answer any questions. And
thank you, Mr. Chipok. Clint, do we have anybody from the public that is here to speak on this matter?
No, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Carey.
Mr. Chipok, you said that the working group is looking at alternatives for Sunrail capital projects. So let's just say that we come up with a list of alternatives. All of those would have to be vetted. So when is the expected time frame for the consultant's report to be finished?
At this point in time, we are still in the process of the RFP for the consultant is out on the streets, and that the RFP responses are due the middle of September. So we would not expect that to be led till about December, I believe. John? I have John Dredge here as well.
For the contract for the consultant, it'll be at least about 2 years from now. We'll have the contract.
Before we have the report?
Yes, it'll be about 2 years to have the report.
So,
well, clearly, I mean, the data shows that sending this Phase 2 North to Lien is not a wise investment. So I would certainly hope that the group, the Sunrail board and the Sunrail working group are working on an alternative Sunrail capital projects list. Because even like I said, if you put 10 things on the list, they all have to be vetted before the DOT would allow us to move forward with them. So I think we should be able to at least accommodate a wish list, if nothing else. Commissioner Delory, can you weigh in on what y'all's conversation has been about this at Sunrail?
I'm more than happy to, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, in the last meeting that we had, DOT wanted an answer right then and there. And we as a board decided to make that decision in October. And DOT then agreed to postpone it until October timeframe. So we're given some time. The issue that I have, as well as other board members have, is it's not an easy decision to make because there's going to be a lot of information that is not going to be properly vetted. And I'm hoping that all the questions can be addressed. There's going to be a lot other questions going to be addressed as more answers are going to be presented to us. So it's going to be kind of hard to make this decision. My biggest question that I have is, DOT in the past has rolled over money from one year to another, and I see no reason why they can't do it as per requested. And we should be able to keep those monies secured as we roll it over like we do at other projects. And I wish that we as a county, as well as a region, will ask our state lobbyists to actually help us with that decision so that DOT would hold those money in abeyance so we can move forward and actually make a fully intelligent decision as we move forward. One of the questions that I have, and I'll be asking our staff, as I'm hoping that we can have this discussion today, is if we're going to be asking our staff to be looking at what to take out of the contract from DOT, there's no reason to do this in piecemeal. If we're going to be taking pieces out, what other pieces do we want to take out of the contract? And I'm hoping that we can have some discussion here today on that as well.
Sure. So hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to read the FDOT letter and understand it. My quick and dirty on it is it looks like there was a great deal of time spent on, for lack of better terminology, let's drop the hammer, but we still want to play nice in the sandbox. So yeah, I think the concern for me is reopening the contract, the initial contract, and going back through all the terms. So I think that's something we should be considering, what that may or may not expose us to if we do reopen those original contracts with Sunrail. So, Commissioner Carey.
Well, I noticed that Mayor Dyer's letter was sent to Kevin Tebow, the Secretary of DOT, and the response was from Jared Perdue, the District 5 Secretary. So, I mean, I know that they're in Tallahassee, they're under a lot of financial constraints, just like everybody else. Their revenues did not shape up to be what they were anticipating. But I think it would be foolish to spend money, good money after bad, when you know that performance of the leg to land would be a mistake. And so I think that maybe what we need to do is engage the governor and the public, to say it's worth, we've spent many years talking about rail in this community, from light rail, and we end up with commuter rail. This has been going on for a long time. Commuter rail's been running for a while. Waiting a little bit longer to make sure we make the right decision shouldn't really be this difficult to get an agreement on.
Agreed.
So I think that if we have to play all the cards that we have to get that done, then I think that's what we should do. I think that staff should work on alternative projects just to be able to give them a list, if that's what they want, is a list to consider. Because again, every one of those would have to be vetted. I mean, you could take from the Sunrail station in Sanford and run it through the old railroad right away and go out to the Sanford airport. There's a project that have to be evaluated, but that's an idea of a capital improvement project. I'm sure there's plenty of others out there that could be considered that staff are aware of. And but I think that we should engage not only our lobbyists, but all of our political capital with everyone in Tallahassee, whether it be Kevin Tebow or the governor's office or what have you, because this is all public money, no matter how you look at it.
Agreed. Commissioner Lockhart?
A couple of follow-up questions. In my briefing with staff yesterday, it felt like we were being given a choice between two not so great choices, sort of like
Ultimatum.
right, yeah. And so I certainly am frustrated with that, but not knowing all of the ins and outs of the relationships with DOT and Sunrail and the history of all of this, I'm going to rely on you all to bring me up to speed on some things. But would anything we do not require complete consensus from the working group?
If there are to be changes to the way the money is being expended right now and changing the 34 million and applying it elsewhere, yes, that would require unanimous consent of the local government partners through the Central Florida Rail Commission.
So using Commissioner Carey's idea as an example, it's not a bad one, certainly, going out, doing a spur out to the Sanford airport. That's something that everyone in the working group would have to agree to as a potential project.
Correct.
So every item that would be brainstormed to go on the list would have to pass unanimously of everyone in the working group. That poses a little bit of a challenge, I guess.
I think if they just come up with a list, a regional wide list and give it to DOT. That's what they're asking for.
So and this is something I hear constantly from folks who have attempted to utilize Sunrail, is that they feel like it doesn't get them to where they want to go. I think Commissioner Delary has referred to it in the past as the last mile or the last leg or
It's the last leg going to, it's phase 2 north up to DeLand. It's the last piece.
No, I mean, once you get off the train, you're not where you want to be. You got to get.
That's called the last mile.
The last mile. So would there be an opportunity to identify last mile type capital projects that could actually make Sunrail useful for people who want to go somewhere other than where the train stop actually is?
We could explore that with the work group and run that past DOT, yes. I don't know what the answer will be, but we can explore it.
Right.
Well, I'm just someone who likes having choices, but I like having good choices. And I just feel like we have been backed into a corner here. Very frustrating.
Well, I agree. I mean, it's never come to fruition as it was originally promised to start with. I think we can all agree with that. I mean, let's just start right there at the beginning. And, I think rail is an aspect of mass transportation for the region. I think the repeatability of riding it is a problem, because if you don't get to the station at the exact time, you don't have another train coming 15 minutes later, like you do in a lot of larger metropolitan areas where you have, every 15 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, a run going to the same or similar places. Paul, I think you've given us this number before. The savings or cost to Seminole County, if we do phase 2 or don't do phase 2, is a difference of what, $2 million? Is that?
It's approximately $2 million on the estimates. The estimate sheet that we have, the last one is from November of 2019. The work group is looking at that and trying to get updated numbers. But on the low end, if it does not go to from DeBerry to DeLand, the lowest operating cost is about $10.5 million per fiscal year, and the highest cost, if it does go to DeLand, is about $14.5 million. And there are various combinations of who's paying for what in there, but those are the two endpoints.
Right. And for those who may not know, train track miles cost are the highest in Seminole as compared to the other partners. If you look at the original contract, of course, it runs a great distance through our entire county. Commissioner Delary?
Question that I would have is with staff with those numbers, and until we have an audit on those numbers to actually understand and validate those numbers. They're just numbers that presented to us from DOT.
They are not, you are correct. They are not audited numbers. They are the best available data, and they are being vetted further. It won't be to the level of a complete audit, but there will be further investigation on it. And we will report back to you when we have confirmation of how they were vetted and give you the updated numbers.
So Mr. Chipak, I just want to make sure that I understand it so that we get this in the public. There was an agreement that we had discussed and all the rail partners had discussed, and FDOT came back and said, yeah, this $35 million could be used for other items. And we had an agreement to go study, review, look at these things with the consultant. Everybody was in agreement. And then now we have a letter that says, well, yeah, that's all great, but you got till October 30th, or we're just going to start building the train to the land. Is that a short version of it?
That is a very accurate short version of it, yes.
Okay. So basically, we've been given an ultimatum after there was an agreement that we were going to try to work through this with all the partners, except now FDOT has come back and drawn the line in the sand and said, well, we really love you and we really want to work with you and we want to continue to have a good relationship. But by the way, if you don't have an answer by now, we're going to charge $20 million to Volusia and we're going to build the train tracks. I think is the fast and easy explanation of what we're dealing with. So I think staff's looking for direction on how we want them to proceed moving forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Delory.
I think staff's recommendation is to continue vetting the numbers and also vetting the projects.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that I have no problem doing that, but I want to make sure that we're doing it expeditiously. And I'm saying that because once we open up these contracts, we need to make sure that Seminole County is not only represented correctly, but all our issues are being addressed. Once you open up these contracts and you start making changes and people start feeling as if they've gotten what they needed, then they don't have to vote on issues that we need. That's one of the reasons why I stated early in this process that it needs to be done holistically. And I want to make sure that any issues that Seminole County needs to address, it's being done at one time. So they're all in this together.
And I don't necessarily disagree with Commissioner Delory, but I guess the question for staff is, it's now the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
The letter clearly gives a deadline for some answers, which is October, end of October. Do you believe you're going to have all these answers in time to respond to FDOT?
The short answer is no. All we will be able to do is get as much information as we can and present it to you closer to the end of October.
And Mr. Chairman, that's why when I stated earlier that we ask our state lobbyists as well as our funding partners ask their state lobbyists to get engaged, I think that would be one of the most important things that we do to make sure that we're all represented up in Tallahassee, to give Tallahassee the real issues that are out there. Instead of playing who moved the cheese, that we actually have an intelligent conversation and we actually have due process as well as the proper amount of time to make an intelligent decision.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree, but I've read through the entire contract. It's all the amendments to the contracts. It's pretty clear that there's breach of contract all the way through it, in my opinion. I don't know that it's in the best interest of litigating this item on behalf of the taxpayers if it came to that. I certainly personally have no interest in litigating against our partners. So, again, the question becomes, we have an ultimatum by October 30th. We can call our state lobbyists and do all these things, which I think is a great idea. But I think staff's looking for a more direct guidance, whether that is continue working on the projects, get what you can to FDOT, in our fellow partners, or strictly handled another way? I think that's the direction the staff's really looking for. Commissioner Carey.
Well, I just think it has to be a three-pronged approach. I think that we need to continue to work on a list of alternative ideas to give them by the 30th. I think that we need to engage our lobbyists, and I think that we need to engage, ask our partners at the Sunrail board members to engage their lobbyists to put on a full court press at the state level to what's going on here. And because it's not like they're going to take the money and pull it back into DOT. They're going to take the money and spend it on a project that's already shown that ridership would not be successful, and that would be foolish on their part. And so what's the rush? And that's the part that is unanswered. And I think that we have to just approach it from all aspects. I don't think we just try to do one or the other. I think that we put the full court press on in all three areas. And Commissioner Gloria, at your Sunrail meeting, have y'all talked about having the lobbyists for all the various agencies engaged with a strategy to, I mean, you got 60 days basically.
The issue with having a lobbyist from our perspective that represents the Sunrail board would be the funding of that lobbyist.
I didn't say hire a lobbyist. I said to have all their lobbyists. So we have a lobbyist. All of the partners have lobbyists. And so if the Sunboard Rail board approves a strategy, they could give it to all the lobbyists and say, we need this approach taken to Tallahassee to try to get support for them to hold that money until we have some good intelligence of how to spend the money. And that's in everybody's best interest, including the states.
Right.
So that wouldn't be received well. And if it isn't being received well by DOT, then maybe the conversation needs to happen with the different bosses of DOT.
So I don't necessarily disagree with Commissioner Carey. And of course, some of the lobbyists for us are the same lobbyists for some of the other rail members. So they wouldn't be doubling up and maybe saving times from a lobbyist standpoint. So, Commissioner Delary, where do our partners stand on this issue? What do they want to do? Do they want to go to the land, or they don't want to go to the land?
In the last Sunrail meeting, I believe that since DOT brought this issue up to us, that they wanted to get more information. They wanted to speak to their staff. I believe there was more and more questions that were taking place. This was brought up to us at the last moment. In fact, I was informed the day of the meeting that this took place. And so a lot has happened since then. So it was kind of difficult to actually make decisions when things are brought up the day of or the day before the meeting.
Okay.
But I can tell you, hearing the conversations of the board members at that meeting, there was some questions, very much like what we're hearing here today from those board members, and they're supposed to be getting back with their staff. And that's where the working group of the staff are talking to each other. They're not a conduit. That way I can't use them. But it's important that staff actually works forward. Mr. Chipok, is that the way you took it?
Yes, that's an accurate representation of the last Rail Commission meeting.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chipok, are the staffs from the various groups, are y'all actively working on something, or everybody's just kind of busy doing something else and it really isn't at the forefront?
We do meet on a regular basis. We meet at least every 2 weeks on this to move forward with the issues. And again, in talking with the respective staffs, we're all kind of having these conversations with our respective commissions to try and get a sense of where collectively the work group needs to be going at this point in time.
And have y'all got a time schedule for getting this figured out? Because again, you got about 60 days to figure this out. And if you need to launch a different approach or a lobbying strategy in Tallahassee, you can't wait till the 50th day to do it.
That is correct. With the lobbying strategy, I don't know if that would be spearheaded through the work group, or whether that would be through the various local governments administrations.
I think that would be through the local government administrations, is the best position. And I know part of the struggle has been, at least in my briefings, I've come to understand, all the partner staffs have been meeting, have been working together, and each county staff had picked up a specific portion of the study as they were moving forward. When then everybody understanding they were working one direction, then this letter was dropped on everybody like, oh, by the way, we know you're working on, coming up with a study and finding out what's best for the region, but yeah, well, you got to October 30th to make a decision or we're going to pull the trigger.
Chairman, maybe what we need to do is have you send a letter as the chairman of our board to the other Sunrail board members and their elected bodies to say, time is of the essence here. And we had this conversation today, and I know y'all aren't meeting again until October, but we wanted you to know what our thoughts were. Right. And let's get it out there, because again, if we wait until Sunrail meets again, that's the day before this drop dead date that we have in this DOT letter. And, and if we just say that we don't think that's a good use of public funds to build a spur that isn't going to have good ridership, then maybe they say, well, then we're just going to take the funds and do something else with it. So, I think that we certainly should take the lead by at least you sending a letter out after this meeting today to all the other partners and their elected bodies to say, we had this discussion and here's what we think, hopefully y'all have as well. And can we agree on some kind of strategy of how to move this forward before the Sunrail meeting?
Sure, and I don't necessarily disagree with that at all. And I think some of the struggle is exactly what I just said, was everybody seemed to be working in the same direction. If you go back in time, we had Mr. Perdue come speak to us on this matter originally, who then committed initially, yes, we could do this. So if that's the flavor of the board, then I will work with staff to draft and get a letter out accordingly. Commissioner Lockhart?
I think it's really important that we have a letter come out on behalf of our board establishing how we're viewing this, because I think your synopsis of the predicament that they've put us in, and kind of, going back on their commitment, is frustrating. I think we need to memorialize that and let others know. And frankly, I don't know at what point you pull the trigger to communicate directly with the governor's office, but certainly I think sooner rather than later. I like Commissioner Carey's three-pronged approach very much. I think that those things should be going on as the letter is drafted. I don't think that there's any reason why we should do one and then wait and see and then do another. I think we need to be doing them all concurrently if possible. So that would be mine.
No, I agree completely, because we've been working under the premise of good faith with our partners and with FDOT to get to a point of agreement that now has quickly changed, and which then I would also argue that the letter, when you really go into it, it attempts to pit us against our partners through the region, which I'm not fond of one bit. I understand the strategy. I'm not interested in it. I'm interested in being a team player through our region. I think this board is as well. So I would concur that we should do that. So, Mr. Chipok, you're clear on that? Yes, Commissioner Constantine, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I would like to say is I can't believe, as committed as the DOT has been on this project, that they are going to now kind of do a double shift and really go in and try to become difficult in this process. I think that Mr. Chipoff has given us an opportunity. I mean, the recommendation that we work towards the October deadline, But I just have to feel that the DOT is not going to put $34 million into a project that has clearly indicated is not wanted and is not needed. So I don't want anyone to think that we're going to bash the DOT here. I think the DOT is still going to be a partner in this, and I do believe that whatever recommendation comes forth, I don't believe it's going to be to build a road or build the leg that is not needed.
Well,
$1 million on that.
no, and I appreciate that, and I understand that. I think some of the concern should be is the contract calls to go to the land. If you're not going to go to the land, now you're going to reopen the contract. So I think that's concerning and to some of the partners, and should be concerning to us on where that ultimately ends up. Commissioner Carey?
So just as a reminder, when this whole project started, and the funding came, federal funding came out of Washington under the leadership of Congressman Micah, after we lost the light rail funding to Charlotte, who built a system they call Links, which I think is ironic. And when Secretary Prasad was the DOT secretary when this was getting ready to launch, you might recall, for those who were involved, that they just basically said, we don't really like this project at all, but if y'all want to do it, we'll do it, and y'all will have to just deal with the consequences. And so the project moved forward, but not with the support of the DOT secretary at the time, which was Annette Prasad. And so if you go back and look at this, historically, between the relationship between Central Florida and DOT on this rail project, it's never been a project that DOT was fond of. So I just think that, we have a great working relationship with DOT from the top all the way to the local jurisdiction. We work on a lot of projects with them, both locally. We advance fund a lot of projects with them. This is just one project out of many that we work with them on. Same thing with the Expressway Authority. The Turnpike is directly under the Department of Transportation. We work very closely throughout this region with the Department of Transportation. And I just feel like there's bound to be a solution that works for everybody in the region if we just sit down in the room and have a conversation about it and figure out what changed. So something clearly changed from DOT on this, because they had said that they would hold the money until we could figure it out. And now all of a sudden they're not going to. So is it because they're hoping we say, well, we don't want you to spend the money there, and they take the money and go somewhere else? I don't know that, without being that involved in it, but all I'm saying is this should have some urgency from our board so that we don't run into a time situation where we don't have time now to have those conversations.
Agreed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Mr. Constantine?
I don't want to prolong this conversation, but
No.
yeah, I agree that there's going to be a solution found that's going to be supported by all. I truly do believe that. And I don't want to go into a history lesson either, but frankly, the DOT has always been supportive of this project from the beginning, ever since the original DOT director, Stephanie Kopalousis, was pushing, who is now the legislative director of the governor, was pushing for this in the legislature back in 2008, 9, and 10. So I believe that we're going to find a solution, and that's all I want to say. We don't have to go. I could disagree on history lessons, but let's just move forward.
Okay. So the consensus is I will work with staff and get a letter drafted appropriately of what the board's decision and direction is today. Fair enough?
Yes. Correct.
All right. Very good. All right. Next item up is going to be item 48. Whoop.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Yeah, could I ask that the letter be circulated before it's sent?
Sure.
Okay. I'd like our board to be able to see it before you send it.
Yeah, staff, you got that? Well, I'll make sure it happens.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I muted myself. Yes.
Oh, that's okay.
Recirculate.
Well, and your face went away too, so thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, next item up is number 48. Mr. Bill Wharton is here to present item 48 related to English Estates subdivision projects, sidewalk projects. Mr. Wharton, you're up, sir. Mr. Wharton?
There we go.
Good
morning,
morning, sir.
Chairman and Commissioners. We're back to sidewalks with this item. This is item 48. This is, I'm sorry, Bill Wharton, Transportation Planning Manager, Engineering Division with the Public Works Department. The interlocal agreement among Seminole County, the School Board of Seminole County, and the signatory municipalities pertaining to the shared distribution and use of the 1 cent local government infrastructure surtax was approved in March 2014 and provides lists for projects of the county, the cities, and the school board. Section 3 of this agreement allows for the counties, the cities, and the school board to add to or delete projects from the agreement following a noticed public meeting. One of the projects identified on the school boards on the Seminole County's sidewalk list is the English Estates neighborhood. This is located on the southern portion of Oxford Road. Residents of the neighborhood have requested that the sidewalk project be removed from the list and replaced with the sidewalk improvements along Oxford Road from Derbyshire Road north to the English Estates Elementary School. You were provided with a resolution. Hopefully all the commissioners have received that. And that resolution does just that by amending Exhibit C and the table titled Seminole County Potential Sidewalk / ADA Improvements. This is to remove the English Estates Sidewalk Program and replace it with a sidewalk improvements to Oxford Road from Derbyshire Road north to English Estates Elementary School. Staff recommends the board approve and authorize the chairman to execute the resolution.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wharton. Any questions for Mr. Wharton before we go to the public? Seeing none, Clint, if you will be kind enough to cue anybody in the public that may be on to speak. If there is, please let us know.
No raised hands.
No raised hands, okay.
We just got one.
Okay. All right. If you'll bring them in. Looks like Miss O'Neill. Okay, if Miss O'Neill, oh, there we go. Miss O'Neill, we've got you in the queue. If you'd be kind enough to state your name and address for the record and let us know whether you're speaking in favor or in opposition of the proposal.
Okay, my name is Susan O'Neill. I live at 1221 Cambridge Road in English Estate. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I am opposed to moving the money or taking the sidewalk program off of the interstreet. I was just I was wondering why our HOA president didn't know about the residents asking for the money to be moved, because a lot of people in this neighborhood did not know the money was being moved. We didn't know anything about this. I will bring up that as you guys were talking earlier about the other area that was in question about sidewalks in other communities, I just wanted to refresh your memory that in 2014, there was a special referendum held for this. So there was a lot of money already spent on that for the people to vote for or against the additional 1 cent tax, which included the sidewalk program. And I would hope in 2000, I believe statewide and actually nationwide, the sidewalk program was a very important thing. Now I know they're going to what they call complete streets. I feel that Oxford definitely needs to be upgraded, but moving the money to Oxford is not going to help slow down traffic on Oxford, and it's also not doing what the program was originally set up for, was to have safe passage for pedestrians and connectivity and the missing links. We have a street called Glossonbury, which is on one side of Oxford. It connects to Derbyshire, and then it goes through Bel Air, which comes out right by the school. I walk that street frequently, and there is considerable traffic. And I don't even walk when there's during the high traffic time. I had the other day an incident where 7 cars whizzed by me and my dog within a 2-block period. And this is something that happens quite often. There's also an Alzheimer's nursing home on that street. And I see a guy, which may have just moved here recently and may be living there. I don't know where he lives, but he's on a motorized wheelchair going up and down that street. So, I mean, as far as ADA, I would hope that it just seems crazy that you guys at one point, Seminole County and the state was completely for connectivity, safety, and now you want to take that away. Yeah, maybe not all the streets needed sidewalks, but I know recently you guys did a sidewalk project off of Howell Branch and Lake Howell in the Temple Trace area. Azalea Avenue and Kerrigan Avenue, they're dead-end streets and they got sidewalks.
Yeah, Miss O'Neill.
That's all I'm saying.
I don't mean to cut you short, but you're running on your time limit.
Okay, well, I'm opposed to moving the money there. I believe the street Oxford needs help, but it's not helping the situation. We have a sidewalk there. It needs to be fixed.
Yes, ma'am.
Moving money there isn't going to fix the problem with Oxford, and it's not helping what this program was set up to do, is to have connectivity and safe passage for pedestrians. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, and have a great day. Okay, Clint, do we have others from the public on the line?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We don't have a name. We have 3 participants raising their hand. I don't have a single name on any of them. So I will go to whomever is on the line. If you would state your name and address for the record, and please state whether you are in favor or in opposition to this item. Clint, looks like they're still muted. Okay, while we're waiting for that to get worked out, you have Mr. Murphy on the line. Mr. Murphy, you are muted.
How about now?
Mr. Murphy, if you would be kind enough to state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name is John Murphy. I live at 2060 Hunterfield Road and been a member of the English Estates neighborhood for 35 years, and 30 of those years serving on the HOA board in one manner or another, currently the vice president. I think this moving the money is, I agree with Ms. O'Neill that it's not conductive. It eliminates the conductivity to the neighborhoods to the north of us who have existing sidewalks, and some of our neighborhood, which was built in the later phases, has sidewalks. So we're kind of jeopardizing the ability for our residents to move safely back and forth on sidewalk. I find it rather amusing that a house was just put up for sale on Derbyshire Road, and one of the factors to entice people to move in was there was a sidewalk for evening strolls through the neighborhood. This same group of people, there's 15 to 20, are compromising the total residents of Seminole County, English Estates, Bel Air, and our neighbors to the north by their vocal complaints and misinformation that they're distributing about your project. Therefore, I wish the county would consider putting those sidewalks back in. Yes, maybe not all of them, but we do need some connectivity between east of Oxford and west of Oxford to Derbyshire and Glastonbury. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy, and be well.
Thank you.
Okay, Clint, we have, looks like 3 others. If I can get those queued. Michelle Bailey, looks like we've got a Miss Michelle Bailey on the line. Miss Bailey, if you would state your name and address for the record and let us know whether you are opposed or in favor of this item.
Yes, my name is Michelle Bailey. I live on Hunterfield Road, 2205 Hunterfield Road. And I'm against the changing to only cover Oxford, Asher. Because Hunterfield Road especially is a very busy road. It's used as a cut through because people don't want to use Derbyshire. So we do have a lot of traffic moving through. And I just feel it's not a safe area to be able to walk because we don't have the sidewalks. So I feel like, especially our road, I think we do still need those sidewalks. I understand some of the side roads, they don't have as much traffic as us. I don't know if it's possible to, divert some of the money back to just certain roads that have heavier traffic, like ours. But I'm certainly in favor of keep sidewalks, the surrounding roads.
Okay.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. Be well.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Okay, Clint, if you'll be able to bring the next one in, please. Looks like we have Miss Hickman. Miss Hickman, you are in the queue. If you would state your full name and address for the record and let us know whether you are in favor or opposition to this proposal.
Hi, this is Catherine Hickman. We are at 1220 Manchester Road, and my husband and I moved in here back in 1986, so we've been here almost 34 years. I am in favor of the proposition to divert the money. I don't want sidewalks. I don't know what happened to all the people that were on the phone the last time there was a meeting, but the climate of our road here, Manchester, is very slow. There's hardly any traffic on it. There's really no need for sidewalks. I think like other people that have expressed the opinion, I don't like the idea, the flavor of the community when the sidewalks are there, when it's kind of more rural and relaxed without them. And the other thing is that I don't know if anybody's actually seen the property, but we have a very old oak tree that's pretty close to the road, and it was, it's been here. We've spent a lot of money on this tree over the years, keeping it up and trimming it, thousands of dollars really. We have it cabled so that in hurricanes the branches don't. It's a tree that has actually a single trunk, and then the branches go out to the side. And during Hurricane Charlie in that year, when all those hurricanes came through, a little crack developed, and we've had it cabled. We've had, that all taken care of. And the idea of having a sidewalk go right across the root zone of that tree, and it would be really close, and the potential harm that it could do to it, to destabilize it when a big wind storm comes in or something, is just frightening to us. So if there's, if somebody has a road that they think has a lot of traffic and needs a sidewalk, that's one thing, but Manchester is certainly not one of them.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Hickman. Appreciate your time. Be well. Clint, we had some others, I think, that were queued. Looks like we have a Mr. Matthew Thomas coming in. Mr. Thomas, welcome. If you would be kind enough to state your name and address for the record and let us know if you're in favor or opposed to this topic.
Hi, my name is Matthew Thomas. I'm at 2200 Falmouth Road. When I registered for this meeting, I selected that I was opposed to it, but I misread it. I am for moving the money to the Oxford sidewalk and taking them out of the English Estates neighborhood. Our neighborhood through here, Falmouth and Stratford, is a very quiet street. There's hardly any traffic that goes by. There's times when you can stand outside for 30, 45 minutes and very few cars will go by. Maybe occasionally the neighbors themselves will drive past. For the most part, it's a quiet neighborhood. A lot of the neighborhood has already been well established with trees and landscaping. And if the sidewalk does come through, a lot of that is going to have to be removed, and it's just going to take away from not only the charm of the neighborhood, but it's going to cause other issues. People that have multiple vehicles in their driveways are now going to lose driveway space, so they're going to be parking in the street. There's been times when people have had gatherings at their homes and they park right alongside each other, and you can't get vehicles through. There was an instance not too long ago on one of the other streets where there was a party and a delivery truck couldn't even get down the road. So I know a delivery truck is not as big as a fire truck, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that one. So we're going to be causing problems for that. But also, if we're going to be removing grass to put in concrete, when we have heavy rains, we're not going to be able to have anywhere for the water to drain. As of right now, we don't even have a sidewalk in this area, and we already have drainage issues to where the water backs up and the drains aren't flowing. I think what we need to do is eliminate the sidewalks on the streets that do not need it, or all of them altogether, focus the money where the sidewalks are damaged or not big enough and correct that issue, but then also repair the drainage and fix the stuff that we actually need.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. We appreciate your time.
Thank
you. Be well. Okay, Clint, next, please. I don't have a name, but phone number ending in last three digits of 196. You are in the queue. If you be kind enough to state your name and address for the record and whether you are opposed or in favor of this project. Welcome. Caller, if you could give us your name and address, please.
Stephen James O'Donnell, and I live at 1254 Stratford Road.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to talk. And like the gentleman that just spoke, Matt, he said a lot of the things that I actually wanted to say, and I also wanted to voice my approval for not going forward with the sidewalk project for many of the reasons that Matt had just specified. But what I did want to do is I wanted to thank Mr. Delari personally for taking time out of his busy schedule on a Saturday and walk our neighborhoods and see some of the issues that Matt had just discussed. Again, we live in a very, very established neighborhood. I feel as if this project will impact financial hardship on residents that have septic tanks, drain fields, and to me it seems completely unwarranted for a 60-year-old neighborhood. Just to elaborate on what Matt had just said, I took a series of measurements across Sunderland Road, and I parked two vehicles door to door on opposite sides of the street, and the clearance was 7 foot 6 inches, with two vehicles parked in opposite directions. So I called a representative of Seminole County Fire Department, and he told me that the fire truck that responds to English Estates is 9 foot 6 inches mirror to mirror. Okay, so that means a fire truck responding to an emergency in this neighborhood would have a very, very difficult time getting to the site of the emergency quickly, and the same would also apply for paramedics and police responders. So, as Matt mentioned, many of the driveways in this neighborhood are short to begin with. So that is going to force more cars into the street, and in my opinion, make that much more dangerous. So I thank you all for your
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell.
consideration, and I ask you to please not fix what is not broken, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
You betcha. Thank you, and be well, sir. Okay, Clint, how many more callers do we have queued up on this topic, sir?
We have one more hand raised.
Okay, I'll go to the commission. I see some hands raised. Let's get this next caller out of the queue. If you'll bring them in, please. Ms. Carol Morrow, welcome. If you'll state your name and address for the record, please state whether you're in favor or in opposition to this item. And if you're basically going to be telling us the same thing that everybody else has told us, we would ask that say what you need to say, but let's try not to regurgitate what we've already heard. Please proceed. Ms. Morrow?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Welcome.
Thank you. Carol Morrow. I live at 2175 Hunterfield Road. I would like simply to add my approval to the comments of the previous gentleman. I have written several letters and emails describing my opinions about putting in sidewalks. I'm sure you've all seen them. And I would like also to state, prior to the July 28th meeting, I know you received a very large number of objections from homeowners, more than 15 to 20 people, saying that they did not want the addition of sidewalks.
Yes, we have.
Yes, so it is a very large number of people that aren't necessarily calling in right now. Thank
Understood.
you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and be well. Okay, Clint, no other callers on the line in this matter?
We did get another hand.
Okay, let's bring that caller in, and if I could ask the caller to try to limit your time. We want you to say what you want to say, but if you're going to pretty much tell us the same thing that we've been hearing, any new evidence, please tell us any new evidence. We've heard both from those in favor as well as those opposed. So if you could state your name, address, and let us know whether you're in favor or opposed, please.
Hi,
welcome, Ms. Case.
You can hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm Chloe Case. My husband and I live at 1985 Hunterfield Road. We are a younger family, and we are in favor of sidewalks. We just moved in January, and we love the area so far, but we just bought this home planning on having kids in it, and we just really, would love the sidewalks that we could safely send our kids to school, not have to worry about them, the cars avoiding them or them having to, duck around cars in the streets that are parked on the streets. My husband and I walk our dogs. My husband walks our dogs every day, and he's constantly trying to avoid, the glass that's in the streets from the recycling bins that got dropped. And safety is just our number one priority, and we would love, some sidewalks in some of the areas, especially Hunterfield and some of the areas that are directly to the school for the safety of our kids.
Okay. We thank you for calling in, Ms. Case. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Clint, are there any others?
No, sir.
Okay, seeing none, I think Commissioner Lockhart, this is her district, and she had her hand, I think, raised a few moments ago. So we'll go to Commissioner Lockhart, then Commissioner Carey.
Well, thank you. I have spent a lot of time talking to folks in this community over the last several months, and what I've learned is that sidewalks combined with an election season does not make for good neighbors. Unfortunately, this has become a really divisive discussion for this neighborhood, and it makes me very sad, honestly, to hear and see some of the back and forth. But I think what's important is that what I'm hearing loud and clear from folks is that there are a couple of streets specifically that could benefit from sidewalks. And I think what we have put out there is a one-size-fits-all approach, that it was just easier to cast a wide net and put sidewalks on every street in the neighborhood, rather than maybe being a little more, having a little more precision and picking a couple that would be important. So I've expressed to several of the neighbors that I've talked to that removing this entire project and reallocating the funds, reallocating the funds to the Oxford Road corridor does not mean that there are then no funds to put sidewalks on a couple of those streets if they're deemed necessary. And so I know I've tried to separate the two issues and say, okay, we can remove this project from the sales tax list, and yet still, if there are streets that warrant the addition of sidewalks, those could be done separate and apart from this specific huge endeavor. So I've thrown that out there as an idea for them to contemplate for the one street or two that may really benefit. Anyway, that's just a little background.
Thank you. Commissioner Carey?
Well, I think an important word that I just heard was warrant. So in many of these streets where they're short, there probably isn't a warrant for sidewalks. And I think that what we need to do is to, again, kind of do a little more homework and put some traffic counters out there, see where the traffic really is, where there is a lot of traffic, where it may make sense to put some sidewalks. Sounds to me like maybe there needs to be some no parking signs put up out there on some streets if there's not a pass of two to park on each side of the road. So sounds like there's some safety issues out there. Oxford needs to be addressed, but so do some of the streets in these developments. And so I think that we've got to, again, I think based on our conversation earlier this morning, we need a protocol of how we're going to go evaluate a request or a need and come with a process that involves the community, involves traffic data like traffic counters. It's easy enough to put traffic counters out there on those streets and just see what the traffic is. Yes, there are some cut through streets there. Yes, Derbyshire is, Oxford dead ends in Derbyshire. So, maybe there's 3 or 4 that would benefit from it and make it safe for everyone in the community on both sides of Oxford Road. So I don't have an issue with moving this forward to take the current funding and put on Oxford Road. But at the same time, I don't want to do that if these two neighborhoods aren't going to be addressed, because I think there are some needs that need to be addressed out there. And I think you just got to figure out what it is. And so if, the whole COVID thing has had an impact on our sales tax revenue. Before COVID, we probably would have had some excess sales tax revenue. Right now, we probably don't. So again, if there's already sidewalk on Oxford that could be repaired to get us to where we need to go to the school, which was the main purpose of some of these sidewalk projects to begin with, then I say, let's take some extra funds and fix Oxford and set this money aside until we can get through a process that makes sense, and then bring it back to the commission once we have the answers to the questions. I don't think that there's anything earth-shattering about this. It needs to be action taken today.
And if that's a motion, I would support that motion. Commissioner Delory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to echo not just the comments that Commissioner Lockhart made, but Commissioner Carey made. One size doesn't fit all. And just today, the issues that I'm hearing is there's traffic issues, there's cut-through issues, there's speeding issues, there's draining issues, there's children walking to school issues, there's safety issues, there's glass from the recycling, there's people who want sidewalks, people who don't want sidewalks. I don't want to pit one neighborhood against the other, as Commissioner Lockhart said. I really believe that we need to step back. I really believe that we need to look at Oxford Road as a complete street project and to surgically look at the needs of this established community, both sides of Oxford Road as well as Derbyshire. It's a beautiful community. There's a lot of pride here. We need to enhance the community as well as the pride, and need to get, the community wants to be involved, so let's involve them. And let's actually do a holistic approach to this community and letting them help us help themselves. And look at the pedestrian, look at the retrofit issues. Instead of just putting in traffic counters, actually look at cut-through traffic. You may have to be able to do that through Bluetooth counters as well as other means that our staff is capable of doing that. But truly look at it from a holistic standpoint. This community was established many years ago, and it's time that we actually look at reinvesting money in not just the side streets, but Oxford Road as well as Derbyshire. It's a beautiful community. We just need to keep on enhancing it and looking at it from a community standpoint and getting the community involved and hearing their input on what works, what doesn't work. And I agree that we need to be taking a step back, but looking at all the issues instead of looking at just one size fit all.
Thank you, Commissioner Delory. Commissioner Constantine?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the fact that I think that the district commissioner, Commissioner Lockhart, and then the discussion after that with Commissioner Carey and Commissioner Delory and yourself, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a good time to take a step and proceed with the recommendation that was made, and let's get the community involved and let's see what really is needed out there. And so I would support that recommendation.
So I'll look to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we continue this item until we can get better facts and information, and then have it come back to the board for specific action that really fits the community.
Okay, we have a motion. I would second that motion.
Well, I'll second it for discussion. Let me ask staff what that time frame looks like from your perspective and what that would entail.
For the record, John Say, Public Work Director, we will discuss it with the staff and come up with a time frame. We probably need to have some meeting with the communities and see what area we need to concentrate on, and we'll come back with a plan to the board.
Well, I'd like some facts involved in this with, again, what are the streets that are the cut-through streets and which ones would benefit the most from sidewalks? And you can learn some of that from the community, but you can also learn some of it by having traffic counters or Bluetooth counters, or however you want to count the traffic. But clearly, these neighborhoods there are certain roads that are used for cut-through, and those would be the number one priority. If you've got a road that doesn't have much traffic on it, then somebody walking down the street probably isn't a problem. But for the ones where they're potentially at risk, I think that we just need to know what that is. And that's not just a community meeting, that's some fact finding as well, in my opinion.
Well,
we can do traffic count on all those streets, on the cut street, and as a part of the evaluation.
Well, I would agree, but here's my concern. I'd like to have an answer to this. First, I'd like to put a time certain on when staff's going to get back to us, understanding we have some people in school, some people not in school, so I don't know that your traffic counts are going to be historically accurate with what, quote, normal times were. And I also understand that it may take some time under the current COVID situation, coming up on holidays. I mean, I don't know. The first meeting in January, can you have everything done, including community meetings, to report back to us? Or you think it's something sooner? I don't know that sooner can be done, but it's your wheelhouse, Mr. Dredge.
I think in January, yes.
On that, the time sensitivity of this is really board dependent. We're moving the project forward because it was a sales tax project, and so we're trying to move through the list that was included as part of the sales tax, and that's really the distinction with this project is if it's on the list, we need to get it done, and that's why we're having a discussion about whether or not it stays on the list. You tell us what you want from a timing standpoint. We'll respond to what the board and when the board wants. Within reason, we've got to have some time to get some things done. But we could bring it back. January would work. We could bring it back sooner. But really, how soon do you? How comfortable are you on a timeline with respect to what the neighborhood is concerned with as well?
Sure. So, and I appreciate that. And all I want to do is make sure that we have accurate counts. So let's go to the district commissioner and get her input from the aspect of her interaction with her people in her district. So Commissioner Lockhart.
So it gives me heartburn to think that we are going to continue dragging out this issue for the community and for their relationships with one another. I don't think putting this on pause through the holidays and waiting for things to come back in January is going to be helping neighborly relations. I would prefer if we move forward with staff's recommendation of removing the item from the sales tax list so that part is done. And then in the meantime, work with the community, look at the traffic counts, do the data gathering that needs to be done so that it's not this dark cloud hanging over these neighborhoods. Without going into great detail, I will just tell you this has not been a conducive, productive experience for this neighborhood. Right. And so I would like to put this to bed for them and pull it off the list so that we know that it's not going to be every sidewalk in the neighborhood, every street in the neighborhood is not going to have sidewalks. We can remove that. And then we can say, we'll look at the data, talk to the neighbors, we'll look at which one or two strategic streets may benefit in the future.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I've got a question on that note to staff. We've obviously had people send us emails on this matter. We had, I'm not sure, a lot of public input a couple meetings ago that was not a public hearing item. We've had, looks like about a 50-50 split today. So my question is, how was the community notified that a discussion of taking previously promised sidewalks out? How was that noticed? Were those residents noticed, or was it just word of mouth from our agenda and maybe an HOA or the district commissioner? I don't know. It's not in our public hearing.
Letters.
We sent note to all these residents in that area within the parameter of the proposed sidewalk.
Okay, so it covered every resident on every street that these sidewalks were originally proposed to go in?
Right.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Okay, Commissioner Carroll.
Well, I just want to clarify something you said, Mr. Chairman. These specific streets were not promised sidewalks. It was listed as English Estates, various, there was no expectation from my perspective and what I've seen advertised prior or current prior that everyone in English Estates thought that they were going to get a sidewalk. And
Sure.
so I just want to make sure that we're not.
Right. And I understand back when the infrastructure sales tax was being done, that there were people in all parts of this county that favored sidewalks as well as didn't favor sidewalks, including the English Estates. So I totally get that. I think the county attorney is trying to weigh in. Mr. Applegate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know this is really a staff driven matter, but Commissioner Lockhart took the words out of my mouth. I was going to point out that the language in Exhibit C says English Estates at various locations. So if the matter is going to be continued for a short period of time, I don't see the need right now to get into amending Exhibit C until such time as staff comes back with a recommendation. And at that point, it may not even need to be amended.
Okay. Commissioner Carey?
Well, so I just heard what Commissioner Lockhart said, and certainly I respect the district commissioner's input, because as a district commissioner, you typically have the pulse of your district a little more so than the other commissioners. So this action, so let me just back up. So the sales tax action language said a name of a subdivision, various locations, whether it was English Estates, Sweetwater Oaks, Markham Place, it didn't matter. That's how they were all advertised.
Right.
And so I'm not opposed to going ahead with Oxford Road and taking action on this today to go ahead and take English Estates out and take action on Oxford Road, which is what this particular item would do, as long as there is a commitment from the board that in the by the end of the first quarter of 2021, we will have looked at English Estates and identify where the various locations are appropriate and fund those that would benefit from sidewalks. So I'm happy to withdraw my motion to continue this if the district commissioner, she thinks that would at least alleviate the issue, as long as there is a clear understanding and commitment from the board. And I'll even ask that to be in the motion, that within the first quarter of 2021, that we will have brought this back to the board for the specific streets within English Estates to identify them based on fact, cut through traffic, safety, and other things and a plan to move forward and fund it. So if that's what the district commissioner wants to do, I will withdraw my motion. The seconder will agree.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'll look for maybe the district commissioner to put that in the form of a motion.
Sure. So I make a motion that the item as presented by staff be approved with the amendment that in the first quarter of 2021, we will have already completed the review of the streets that have cut through traffic and high traffic counts that would warrant sidewalks, and bring those specific streets back to the board with the funding.
Second.
We have a
Mr. Chairman.
motion and a second. Commissioner Delory?
Just for clarification, does that also include community input?
Yes, thank you.
Well, the protocol that we talked about this morning, I would think would be included.
Right. Would the motioner and the seconder consider a friendly amendment to a meeting certain instead of just the first quarter? Would you consider no later than the second BCC meeting in, say, February?
Is that reasonable from staff's perspective? I'd be happy to change that. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So on or before the second commission meeting in February, or I guess we should say the last, since we're only having one
Right.
county commission meeting right now, and that may or may not continue that way.
Right.
In February.
Absolutely. Are the motioners okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Any further input? Is staff clear what the motion is? And the second? Okay. We will call the roll. Commissioner Delary?
Aye.
Lockhart?
Aye.
Carey?
Aye.
Constantine?
Yes.
Zembauer, yes. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Next
all.
up, thank you. Next up is the county manager and staff briefings on the CARES Act. Before you get started, Ms. Guillet, it is 12 noon. We've got still some headway to make this morning, and then we've got several items for the afternoon. Do you want to put this off till the afternoon and take a break, or do you want to get this done? Because it looks like if we get through our county investment advisor report, we probably will not be having a break today.
Chairman, I'm here all day, so whatever the pleasure is of the board, I'll be happy to do it this morning, but I'll be here this afternoon too. So
I would prefer to move to the county investment report and have.
Can we get that done before lunch and then take?
Yes,
sure.
Absolutely. So if Ms. Guillet, you're okay with that, we'll save the county attorney briefing and the county manager and staff briefing until the afternoon session, if that's okay.
Yep.
All right. So if we could bring our Mr. Scott McIntyre in for the briefing on the finance investment advisor report. I think I can hear Scott way in the background.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you go. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good, good. Thank you very much. Good morning, and I will get through this fairly quickly, just in terms of time. So if we can go to the first slide, the events driving the market. You know, not a whole lot has changed since the last time we talked. Obviously, everything is about COVID-19 right now. You know, we're sort of in a pause mode because everybody's trying to decide how the schools are going to open and look at the effect of that. The economic data that we're seeing right now is very unusual because it always seems to be behind. You know, data comes out late and there's been a lot of shifting back and forth. So right now we get the sense that the economy is sort of slowing down, but the data isn't reflecting it yet. The data is a little bit stronger than we feel like it would normally be. The recession has become official. Second quarter GDP growth was negative 32.9. That was the worst quarter since at least 1946. In June, the National Bureau of Economic Research had declared the expansion had peaked in February, which meant essentially the recession began at the beginning of March, which is earlier than most people probably figured. Interestingly enough, the way things are calculated and measured, we are probably out of recession at this point. We won't know that for sure for a while, but we are likely out of recession. Stock market, as you guys know, continues to be on fire. There's a lot of reasons for that. The Fed's zero interest rate policy is the primary driver. It's not the underlying company fundamentals. So if you trade on fundamentals, then you're a little bit confused and lost right now, as a lot of us are around here. Interest rates have hit a new low across the curve yet again. I will tell you, since we put this presentation together, yields have creeped up a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Going to the next slide, the Institute for Supply Management. This is a survey, again, of purchasing managers. We like to look at it because it's a leading indicator. The blue line is the factory survey. As you can see, it moved above that green line, which is the midpoint between expansion and contraction. The same thing has happened with the red line, which is the service sector index. And I need to make the point here that this is just showing improvement. This is a diffusion index, which basically just asks the question, are things getting better or are they getting worse? So we can see that in the minds of these purchasing managers, things are getting better. We're still at a fairly low level, so kind of keep that in mind. The next slide, the employment slide, the first of a couple of employment slides. The thing I want to show here is that top graph is total non-farm payrolls. So these are total folks that are working. And as you can see, from about 2009 until really this March, that was a steady increase. Really the longest continuous expansion of job growth in history. It happened over the course of the last 12 years. And then, of course, it just sort of fell off in March and April, and things have improved quite a bit since then. The point to make here is that these are not new jobs. These are jobs coming back. These are folks who have been sidelined, who have been reinitiated. So the unemployment rate, the official unemployment rate is still 10.2%. It's down from the peak. But if you actually add the folks who are not actively looking for a job within the last 30 days, that unemployment rate is actually closer to 16%. Going to the next slide, and this is a very important slide. These are unemployment benefits claims, and through really the middle of August, very recently, as of about a week ago, the total number of people who are receiving either federal or state claims was about 28 million. So a lot of the improvement that we've seen up to this point is a result of especially the federal additional funding, which actually ended on July 31st. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. If you stuff $3 trillion into the pockets of people and businesses, although that's completely necessary at this point in time, it drives the economy. And once that dries up, the question is, have we started the fire enough with that kindling that it's able to move out on its own? And that's unclear at this point. The next slide is consumer spending. It's really important because that drives the economy, especially here in the U.S. So looking at the blue bar lines month over month, you can really see that in March and April, things slowed down with the shutdown. And then as soon as the economy reopened, there was a big spike, a big bounce in spending. We don't have the most recent on here because it came after I put this graph together. But if you were to see the July numbers released in April, that was only up 2%. So that blue line that was up at 18% and then fell to roughly 7.5% has fallen to 2%. So a lot of that spending boom is over. And at this point, folks who are surviving largely on the federal subsidy are holding their cards tight to their chest to see if there's going to be additional spending. The next slide is economic growth. I just want to sort of show this to you going back a couple years so you can see where we were on a quarter-over-quarter basis and then what happened. And I do want to mention, since I mentioned growth before and I mentioned it here, that the 32.9% is quarterly annualized, and United States does it that way. Other countries don't. But we're actually down quarter over quarter by 9.5%. But again, the way it's calculated, it gets annualized. So thus you have the 32.9. So things aren't quite as bad as those numbers might have indicated. We do expect a big bounce in the third quarter, but really not making up all or even the majority of what had been lost. Next slide I want to show you very briefly is economic growth history. The gray lines are recessions, and basically what we have is GDP growth in the blue line. So you can see that we never, even with the Great Recession, which happened in 2007, 2008, and part of 2009, we are only down 8.4% at the lowest point. So this has been a very, very severe dip. Hence, the federal government comes in to support, individuals and businesses so that when we're done with the pandemic, we haven't lost too much. The next slide is available investment options. And what I want to show you here is that the July portfolio yield for the county was 0.96. So the investment choices that we have right now in terms of U.S. Treasuries, a 2-year Treasury was trading at 14, a 3-year at 16. It's up a little bit now. The 3-year is up at 19 today. Those are historical lows. And, it's hard to move away from what you have in terms of investment yield and lock in, lower yields at historical lows. And that's been the struggle as we look at this. Federal agencies are not much of an additional yield that's earned by investing in an agency over a treasury. So, we do prefer treasuries, all else being equal. Even callable agencies, which usually have additional juice, aren't giving us a whole lot. You really gain the most advantage by going out to the 5-year sector, which is a long, long way to go in the lowest interest rate environment in history. Your banks are paying you from 1/4 to 50 basis points. One small bank is paying you 70 basis points right now, but we really have enough money with them that we don't want to add additional. So in terms of investment choices, the banks are offering up to 50. Pool yields right now, the best is Florida Prime. As of the other day, it was a 39. Again, adding investments right now to your portfolio dilute your overall yield a little bit, and we're somewhat reluctant to do that. Right now, you had one, actually there were 2 investments. They have subsequently matured. They were at a 181 yield. Those are Florida Palm term investments. They've subsequently matured. There are no additional maturities until November 30th of 2020 in the portfolio. So you sort of have a breathing point. You are spending money. So I was informed by the clerk's office, Jenny Spencer told me that your CARES Act spending is likely to increase significantly in September. You also have a $19 million, in addition to your normal spending, a $19 million debt service payment in September. So what's happening is there will be a lot of spending that occurs in September, which is good because you have plenty of liquidity. It's also good in a sense because the spending happens from your liquid options, which are your lowest yielding investments. So, as you spend your money, the diluting that happened on the overall portfolio yield will reverse itself. And that's a plus. So my recommendations are right now that any maturing proceeds, and this has already happened, maturing proceeds have gone into Florida Prime. We do watch the margins on a daily basis. So, we would hope to purchase government securities on a case-by-case basis if yields were to spike for whatever reason in the coming weeks. We would like to maintain a minimal balance in the pool and the Palm portfolio cash pool. And what that does is it keeps the account open after those August Palm term maturities mature. So it keeps the account open so the clerk's office doesn't have to go through the paperwork again to reset them up. We're in position if there are opportunities to be able to jump on those. So I want to emphasize here that the overriding objective continues to be safety. That's the most important point at this point. I'd love to invest in additional securities and further diversify, but again, we're at the lowest interest rate yields we've ever been in history. And part of that has to do with the fact that the economy had been extraordinarily weak. So, hopefully the yields will creep up a little bit. We don't want to chase the yields. That's really how people get into trouble. The next slide, the portfolio snapshot. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but really this supports, the yield and shows you where your investments are. It also shows you, I always try to project the portfolio going forward, and I see I've got a little mistake there. That projection is for the August portfolio, should be at 90 basis points. Could be a little bit higher if the spending were to occur. The next slide is the benchmark comparison. And finally, what I want to show you there is the county is the red line. You're going to continue to pull away from your benchmarks, especially I think that blue benchmark, which you're right on top of right now, which is the 1-year constant maturity treasury. My expectation is that next month you are ahead of that by about 8 basis points, and the next month probably ahead of that by another 8 to 10 basis points. The other 2 benchmarks are going to continue to fall further, where for the most part the county is going to hold steady until it gets to December. And these are all as much of a positive as I could imagine in an environment where, again, the yields are very, very low. The county is in a point where spending is now going to increase, and you do have plenty of liquidity to address that spending, despite the fact that you don't have any maturities until the last day of November. So what I'm asking you to do, again, is very similar to what we've asked over the past couple of months. And again, if there are any maturing proceeds, which have already happened, they would go into the Florida Prime pool. And then the spending will also come out of the Florida Prime pool, which has a fairly robust balance at this point in time. I had promised on the Thursday call that the next time I am on, whether that is going to be in person in September or remote in September, I am looking forward to coming in the event that you guys do have the in-person. But when I do show up in September, on the slide, I'll go over some of the financials for the banks that you have deposits in, you know, the capital ratios, which we have looked at, which are in good shape. Things like loan loss reserves, which your banks have increased, but I don't see any stress in terms of the banks at this point. But we are watching those, and I will present next month on the banks in addition to the normal presenting. So that concludes it. I guess at the end of the day, I'm not actually asking for anything because, again, you know, you don't have any maturities. So the spending will come from Florida Prime, which is what we have been doing all along. Does anybody have any questions or anything I can go into any more detail on?
All right. Anybody have questions for Mr. McIntyre? Seeing none, I will, Commissioner Constantine, I see your hand now. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just move to adopt the recommendations of our financial advisor on the report submitted today and to direct the clerk to implement the board's adopted recommendations.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. I will call the roll. Valari.
Aye.
Lockhart.
Aye.
Carey.
Aye.
Constantine.
Yes.
Dumbauer, yes. Okay, thank you, Mr. McIntyre. We appreciate your time and patience and waiting on us. We will push the county manager and the county attorney's briefing until the afternoon session. If there's nothing else from the commission, we will adjourn until 1:30. Everyone good? We stand adjourned till 1:30.